I parked across the street and kept both hands on the steering wheel long after I killed the engine. My mother's house looked the same as always. Warm porch light, clean curtains. Flower pots she changed every season like that could make the place feel softer than it was. My phone buzzed. "Mom, are you here?" I typed, "Yes." A second later, the front door opened. "Daniel," my mother called. "What are you doing out there? Come inside." "I'm coming." She hugged me before I could decide if I wanted that. "You look thin," she said. "Are you eating properly?" "I'm fine, Mom." She smiled like nothing had happened, like months of silence were nothing. I followed her inside, and the second I crossed the doorway, something old tightened in my chest. The hallway walls were lined with family photos, beach trips, Christmas mornings, Nathan in the center of almost every one, grinning like he belonged there. Me near the edge, half smiling, looking like an extra. Even the frames seemed to know my place, polished around Nathan, dull around me, like this house picked favorites. "Your father's in the dining room," Mom said. "Nathan came early to help." I almost laughed. Nathan never came early to help. He came early to be seen helping. When I stepped into the dining room, my father looked up from pouring wine. "There he is," he said. "Alive after all." "Good to see you too." He nodded once. "Your mother said you've been busy." "That's one word for it." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "Another word is selective." Mom sighed. "Nathan." "What?" he said. "He ignores calls, skips holidays, and shows up like a celebrity." I set my keys on the table. "Nice to see you haven't changed." He grinned. "You say that like it's bad." "It usually is." Mom clapped once. "Okay, tonight is not for fighting. It's my birthday. Can we please act like a family?" That word hit me harder than it should have. Family. In this house, it usually meant I was supposed to swallow whatever someone else handed me. I sat down. My father handed me a glass. "You could have called more." I looked at him. "You could have called once without asking for something." The room went quiet. Mom forced a laugh. "Daniel, don't start." "Start what?" "This mood," she said. Nathan snorted. "He brought it with him." I looked at him. "You always this brave when there's an audience?" My father set the bottle down. "Enough." There it was. Not enough from Nathan, just enough from me. Dinner started moving around the table. Roast chicken, potatoes, salad nobody touched. My mother kept talking to fill the silence. "I told Linda you might come," she said. "She asked about you." "Linda still lives next door?" "Of course. She said she misses that sweet little boy who used to help carry her groceries." Nathan laughed. "Yeah, before he got offended by oxygen." Mom smiled into her plate. Dad shook his head, smiling too. "You are too sensitive, Daniel. He's joking." I felt that old crack open inside me. That's always the line, isn't it? "What line?" Mom asked. "He's joking. He didn't mean it. Don't be dramatic. Don't make things worse." I looked around the table. I could say this whole family by heart. My father's face hardened. "We are not doing this tonight." I looked down at my plate. 12 years old, standing in this room, hearing Nathan tell our cousins I cried after getting hit with a baseball. 14, watching him steal from my bag, then call me crazy when I noticed. 17, hearing Dad say, "If people keep reacting to you this way, maybe the problem is you." Mom touched my arm. "Honey." I pulled back. Her hand froze. "I was only—" "I know," I said. "That's the problem. I always know." Nathan leaned forward. "You really drove all the way here to sulk?" "No," I said. "I drove here because she's my mother." Mom's expression softened. Then Nathan said, "Could have fooled me." Nobody corrected him. Not Mom, not Dad. Just that same silence, that same permission. My father cleared his throat. "Your brother's frustrated. We all are. You disappear, then come in here acting like the wounded party." I laughed once. "Acting?" Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't twist my words." "I don't have to." Mum whispered. Daniel, please. I looked at her. Do you know what I remember most about this house? She blinked. What? Not birthdays, not Christmas, not movie nights. My voice came out calm. I remember learning that in this family, the person who hurts me gets comfort first. Nobody spoke. Nathan rolled his eyes, but even he looked less certain. Mum said, That isn't fair. I stood and picked up my keys. No, it isn't. Sit down, Dad said. I shook my head. I've done enough of that for one lifetime. Mom rose halfway from her chair. Daniel, don't leave like this. I met her eyes. Then tell me why I keep coming back to a place that never felt like home. I did not go home after that dinner. I kept driving until one memory rose above the rest. I was 19 when I learned truth meant nothing in my family. Convenience meant everything. It was cheaper, cleaner, and easier for them. I still remember my father's office door half open. Daniel, Dad called. Come in. Nathan was already inside, leaning against the filing cabinet like he had front row seats. What happened? I asked. Dad opened his desk drawer. There was cash in here. Now it's gone. I frowned. Okay. Okay, Nathan said. That's all you've got? I looked at him. Why are you talking like a witness? Dad folded his hands. Your brother said you were in here earlier. I was. You asked me to bring in the utility papers. And after that? I left. Nathan let out a breath. Convenient. I stared at him. You took it. Mom appeared in the doorway. What's going on? Nathan answered first. Dad's money is missing. Mom turned straight to me. Daniel, I didn't take it. Dad's face tightened. Then why accuse your brother? Because he did it. Nathan laughed. No hesitation. Amazing. Check his room, I said. Dad slammed his palm on the desk. You do not give orders in my house. Then ask him where the money went. Nathan pushed off the cabinet. You're unbelievable. No, you're just used to getting away with everything. Mom stepped between us. Daniel, calm down. I am calm. No, you're angry, she said, like that was the real offense. Dad stood. This is why people have trouble trusting you. You get defensive too fast. I felt my face burn. Because I'm being blamed for something I didn't do. Nathan shrugged. Maybe stop sounding guilty then. I took a step toward him. Say that again. Daniel, Mom snapped, do not cause a scene. That was always her line. Not tell the truth. Not, let's figure this out. Just do not make it ugly where we can see it. I looked at Dad. You know he lies. Dad looked annoyed, already finished with the whole thing. I know one of my sons is making this harder than it needs to be. I waited for him to mean Nathan. He meant me. Tell him to empty his pockets, I said. Dad pointed at the door. Enough. I will handle this. You're not handling anything. His eyes went cold. Excuse me? You already picked a side. Mom whispered, Please stop. Nathan smirked. Yeah, Daniel. Be useful for once. I moved before I thought. Dad grabbed my arm. That's enough, he said. He stole from you. And you will not speak to your brother like that. I laughed, and even I hated the sound of it. That's what matters? What matters, Dad said, is responsibility. I didn't take your money. He held my stare, then opened the small notebook where he tracked bills. You have savings. I blinked. What? You've been working for a year. You'll replace what's missing. For a second, I thought I heard him wrong. You're taking my money? I'm teaching you consequences. Nathan looked down, hiding a smile he did not bother hiding very hard. I pointed at him. You cannot be serious. Mom touched my shoulder. Just let it go, honey. We'll move past it faster. I pulled away. Move past what? Me getting robbed or me paying for it? Dad's voice dropped lower. Go to your room. I'm 19. Then start acting like it. I wanted to tear Nathan's room apart and dump every lie he had ever hidden onto the floor. Instead, I stood there while Dad wrote down the amount he would take from me, while Mom begged for quiet, while Nathan watched like this was entertainment. That was the day something in me shifted. Not because I was accused, not because they took my savings, because there was an audience. Someone always watched me get hurt and decided comfort mattered more than truth. Years later, Sophie saw it before I said it out loud. We were sitting in her car outside my apartment when my phone lit up with my father's name. I did not answer. I just stared until the screen went dark. Sophie looked at me. "Why do you freeze every time he calls?" "I don't freeze." She waited. I looked out the window. "I just don't want to talk." "Daniel." "What?" "That's not all it is." I said nothing. She leaned back. "Every time your family calls, you go quiet. Every time you see them, you come back looking like somebody reached inside you and twisted." "They're still my family." She gave me a sad look. "And what are you to them?" I swallowed. "It's complicated." "No," she said softly. "It's practiced." I turned to her. "What does that mean?" "It means they know exactly how to hurt you, and you know exactly how to explain it away." I almost argued. Instead, I heard my mother again. "Don't cause a scene." I heard my father again. "I'm teaching you consequences." I saw Nathan smiling with my money in his pocket. Sophie touched my hand. "You don't flinch because they love you badly. You flinch because they trained you to expect pain." I looked at her and finally said the truth. "They always choose the easier version of the story." She nodded. "And somehow that version is never yours." I should have known Nathan would come for my money again. People like him never changed methods. They only changed emergencies. Mom called on a Thursday night. "Can you come by tomorrow?" she asked. "It's important." "What happened?" "It's better if we talk in person." "That usually means someone wants something." She sighed. "Daniel." "I'll come." Sophie was at my apartment when I hung up. She looked up from the couch. "Bad?" "Depends," I said. "Do you count emotional blackmail as bad, or just normal for my family?" She muted the television. "Do you want me to come with you?" I shook my head. "No, it'll only make it worse." She held my eyes a second longer than I liked. "That answer says more than you think." The next evening, I walked into my parents' living room and saw Nathan sitting there, one leg bouncing, face arranged into fake misery. Dad stood by the fireplace. Mom sat stiffly on the sofa, hands clasped. I stopped near the doorway. "There it is." "What?" Mom asked. "The setup." Nathan scoffed. "You always make everything dramatic." "Only when you're in the room." Dad gestured to a chair. "Sit down." I stayed standing. "Tell me why I'm here." Nathan leaned forward first. "I'm in a tight spot." "Of course you are." "It's temporary." "It's always temporary until it becomes my problem." Mom gave me that pleading look. "Daniel, please." I laughed under my breath. "You haven't even started asking yet, and I already know I'm the bad guy." Dad's tone sharpened. "Watch your attitude." "No," I said. "You tell me what he did." Nathan crossed his arms. "I don't need to explain every detail." "That means it's worse than I thought." Mom jumped in fast. "He had some bills pile up."
He made mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Nathan snapped. Life kind, okay? I looked at Dad. And where do I come in? Dad answered like it was obvious. You have savings. The room went still for me. My emergency fund? I asked. Mom nodded carefully. Just as a loan. Nathan added, family helps family. I stared at him. You mean I help you? He rolled his eyes. Don't act holy. You have money sitting there. It's not sitting there. I worked for it. Dad folded his arms. Your brother needs help. My brother always needs help. Nathan stood up. You think you're better than me because you hoard money? I think I'm tired. Of what? Of being called selfish every time I protect what you didn't earn. Mom rose too. Daniel, lower your voice. I'm not yelling. Not yet, Nathan muttered. I ignored him. How much? Nathan named the amount, and I almost smiled from disbelief. You've lost your mind. It's not forever, Mom said quickly. He just needs time. I looked at her. And when he doesn't pay me back? He will. You don't know that. Dad cut in. Why are you making this hard? I laughed once. Because it is hard. Nathan stepped closer. You know what your problem is?
You never act like part of this family. I stared at him. Because this family treats me like an ATM with feelings. That's rich, he said. Ever since you got with Sophie, you've changed. My jaw tightened. Leave her out of this. He smirked. Why? She's the reason you act like you're too good for us. Mom did not correct him. She only looked nervous. I turned to her, waiting. She said softly, "You have been colder since she came around." The words hit harder than I expected. What? Mom swallowed. She puts ideas in your head. I looked at Dad. Surely he would hear how ugly that sounded. Instead, he said, "I don't understand why you're choosing some girl over blood." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Some girl. That was what Sophie was to them. Not the woman who sat with me through panic, silence, and shame. Not the only person who ever noticed what their voices did to me. Just some girl. Nathan shrugged. Told you. I looked from one face to the next. Say something else. Dad frowned. About what? About how disgusting that was. Mom's expression broke into hurt. Daniel, don't use that word. Why not? You just blamed Sophie because I said no. She changed you, Nathan said. No, I snapped. She just noticed. Dad stepped toward me. Enough. Are you helping or not? I looked at each of them again, slower this time, giving them one last chance to sound human. No, I said. Nathan barked a laugh. Unbelievable. Mom whispered, after everything we've done for you. I almost said, name one thing. Instead, I picked up my jacket and left. Sophie opened my apartment door before I reached for my keys. One look at my face, and she stepped back to let me in. What happened? She asked. I stood in the kitchen, hands flat on the counter. They asked for my emergency fund. And? I said no. She nodded once. Good. Nathan dragged you into it. Her face changed, but not with surprise. More like confirmation. What did he say? That you turned me against them. And your parents? I laughed without humor. Mom said you made me cold. Dad asked why I was choosing some girl over blood. Sophie closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were full of sadness, not anger. I love you, she said. My chest tightened. I love you too. She shook her head. That's not enough if you keep going back there hoping they'll become different people. I'm not hoping. You are. Her voice stayed gentle. You keep standing in front of broken walls and asking them to be a home. I looked away. So what? You're leaving? I'm telling you, I can't build a life with a man who keeps begging wounded people to stop wounding him. That sentence stayed in the room after she said it. I wanted to call it betrayal. I wanted to blame her to make this easier. But even then, I knew better. She wasn't betraying me. She was refusing to drown with me. After that, I stopped going home as often. I missed birthdays. I skipped Sunday dinners. I ignored half the calls. But distance outside me was easier than distance inside me. Even when I stayed away, part of me was still standing in that living room, waiting for one of them to say, "Daniel, you were right." I moved 3 hours away and told people it was for work. That was easier than saying I needed distance from a house that could control my pulse through a ringtone. My apartment was small, clean, and quiet. I kept it that way. I woke up, went to work, came home, reheated something simple, and slept. Outwardly, I looked stable. Inside, I felt numb. One Monday morning, I knocked a stack of folders off the break room table. "Sorry," I said automatically, crouching to gather them. A woman I had seen twice bent beside me. "You know gravity helped, right?" I looked up. "Still my fault." She handed me a folder. "That sounds practiced." I gave a thin smile. "I'm Daniel." "Mara," she said. "And no, I'm not accepting your apology for physics." That almost made me laugh. Good to know. "You always apologize that fast?" "Only when things fall apart." She studied me, then stood. "Next time, blame the table." Over the next few weeks, Mara became part of my workdays quietly. She asked questions like she wanted real answers and never pushed when I didn't give them. One afternoon, she found me staring at my phone in the hallway. "You going to answer that?" she asked. I turned the screen over. No. Bad timing? Bad history. She nodded. Fair. I looked at her.
That's it? Do you want a speech? No? Then no speech. The screen lit again. Mom. Mara glanced at the name, then away. You don't have to explain. I know. Then stop standing like you're waiting to be cross-examined. I frowned. Do I do that? Yes, she said. A lot. That evening I answered on the fourth call. Mom sounded relieved. There you are. Hi, Mom. We've been trying to reach you. I've been busy. You always say that. It's usually true. She went quiet, then said, Your father thinks you're avoiding us. I leaned back in my chair. Maybe I am. Daniel. What? We did our best. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not an apology, a defense. I didn't say you didn't. Families fight, she said quickly. Things get said. Yes. So why are you punishing us? I stared at the wall. That's what you think this is? What else would it be? Distance. From your own parents? Sometimes that's where people need it most. She sounded hurt. You make us sound cruel. I let the silence answer for me. Daniel? I have work tomorrow. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. When the call ended, my chest hurt, but something else sat underneath it now. Not peace, just less panic. The next day, Mara slid a sandwich across the break room table. You forgot lunch. I blinked. How do you know it wasn't intentional? Because people who skip lunch on purpose usually announce it. I looked at the sandwich. Thanks. She sat across from me. Rough night? My mother called. And? She said they did their best. Mara nodded slowly. That sentence does a lot of work for people who don't want to be specific. I looked up. She added, It sounds like a shield. I let out a breath. In my family, it usually is. She waited. My brother could do anything growing up, I said. Lie, steal, insult me, blame me. My parents always had an excuse. And when you reacted, I became the problem. She tilted her head. You say that like it's normal. I laughed once. Does it not sound normal? No, she said gently. It sounds lonely. Later that week, Dad called. I answered because I was tired of the screen owning part of my body. Daniel, he said, your mother's upset. I figured. You've been distant. Yes. Why? I waited. He waited. Then he said, Whatever happened, we're still your family. I looked out my apartment window. That sentence has done a lot of damage in my life. What is that supposed to mean? It means being family never stopped any of you from hurting me. He went silent. Then, coldly, You always were dramatic. Years ago, I would have rushed to explain. This time I said nothing. Daniel? I stayed quiet. Are you there? Yes. Then say something. I looked at my reflection in the glass. No. I ended the call. The next morning, Mom sent a message. I don't understand what happened to you. Nothing happened to me, I thought. I just stopped translating your cruelty into love. I did not send that. I put the phone face down and went to work. In the elevator, Mara looked over. You seem different today. I slipped my phone into my pocket. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe, she said. Or maybe you finally realized silence can belong to you too. For the first time, that sounded true. The call started on a Tuesday and did not stop for 3 days. First, Mom called twice before breakfast. Then Dad called during lunch. Then Nathan, which almost made me laugh. By Thursday night, my phone looked like a crime scene. I finally answered when Mom called again. Daniel, she said, crying, please don't hang up. I wasn't planning to. We need you to come home. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Why? It's your brother. Of course it is. Daniel, please. What happened? She hesitated. Nathan lost his job. I said nothing. And there are other problems.
What kind of problems? Bills, some legal confusion. He's under a lot of stress. I almost smiled. Legal confusion. Don't do that. Do what? Translate? Her breathing shook. Family needs to stick together. There it was. Not Nathan made a mess. Not we were wrong. Just the old line dressed up as urgency. When do you need me? I asked. Her relief came too fast. Tomorrow, if you can. I'll think about it. Daniel. I said I'll think about it. Dad called an hour later. Your mother says you might come by, he said. I didn't say that. He cleared his throat. This is serious. Serious enough for truth or just serious enough for me? He ignored that. Your brother's going through a difficult time. He's been going through a difficult time since puberty. Watch it. I looked at the dark window over my sink. Why me? There was a pause, then his voice changed, softer. Because you're steady. I shut my eyes. It sounded like respect until I heard need underneath it. You mean useful, I said. That's not fair. No, what wasn't fair was spending my whole life being punished for his mistakes. He exhaled hard. Can you come or not? I thought of saying no. I thought of blocking all three of them. Instead, I said, once. The house looked smaller when I pulled into the driveway. Not kinder, just smaller. The white paint around the porch was chipped. The flower pots were half dead. Mom opened the door before I knocked. Thank God, she whispered, hugging me too fast. Thank God you came. I did not hug back. Where is he? In the living room. Dad stood near the couch. Nathan sat slouched in the corner, jaw tight, eyes full of the same anger he always wore. I stayed standing. Talk. Nathan barked a laugh. Nice to see you too. Mom shot him a warning look. Nathan. No, I said. Let him talk. He always does. Dad folded his arms. Your brother made some mistakes. Nathan cut in. I got screwed. By who? I asked. My boss, my landlord, people. I stared at him. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. Dad stepped forward. He was let go unfairly. For what reason? Nathan looked away. Mom answered. There was an issue with company money. I went still. Company money. It was a misunderstanding, she said quickly. Nathan snapped. I already told them that. I looked at Dad. And you believed him? Dad's face hardened. This is not the time. It's exactly the time. Mom touched my arm. Please, we need to focus on solutions. There it was again, solutions. Never truth, never accountability, just cleanup. I pulled my arm away. What do you want from me? Nathan laughed under his breath. Here we go. Dad ignored him. He needs somewhere to stay. He has debt. He may need help with a lawyer. I stared at him. And? Mom looked at me with wet eyes. You have space. You have savings. You're doing well. I let the silence sit until it embarrassed them. Nathan leaned back. You always wanted to feel important. Congratulations. I looked at him. You lose your job over missing money and still sound arrogant. That's impressive. He stood. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I think I paid for your behavior long enough. Dad's voice turned sharp. This isn't about the past. Yes, it is. Daniel, Mom whispered. I looked at all three of them. You still do it, even now. He lies and you soften it. He steals and you rename it. He fails and somehow I become the bridge, the wallet, the calm one. Do you hear yourselves? Mom started crying harder. We're trying to keep this family together. I shook my head. No, you're trying to keep the same structure alive. Nathan breaks things. You defend him. I fix them. Dad said, he is your brother. And I was your son, I said. That never seemed to matter as much. The room went quiet. Nathan scoffed, but weaker this time. You're being dramatic. I looked straight at him. And you're predictable. Then I turned back to my parents. I get it now. Mom wiped her face. Get what? This wasn't an accident. You didn't fail me by mistake. You built this family this way, one excuse at a time. Dad's jaw tightened. That's enough. No, I said. It's just the first honest thing anyone said in this house. I walked to the door. Mom called after me. Daniel, please, don't leave us like this. I opened it and looked back once. Nathan angry, Dad rigid, Mom crying. Same stage, same script, same audience. I'm not leaving you like this, I said. You made it like this yourselves. My mother called the next Sunday and left a voicemail full of tears. Daniel, please come over. We need to talk. I almost deleted it. Instead, I drove there with my jaw locked tight. When I walked in, all three of them were waiting in the living room. Mom sat on the sofa. Dad stood by the fireplace. Nathan leaned against the wall, wearing that lazy half smile he used whenever he thought he could turn everything into a joke. Dad spoke first. You left in a very disrespectful way. I set my keys on the side table. That's how this starts? Mom said. Please don't be hostile. I looked at her. You asked me here. Nathan laughed. He came ready to perform. I turned to him. You should stay quiet. This is mostly about you. His smile thinned. Mostly? Dad stepped in. You will not come in here and attack your family. I met his eyes. That word has covered a lot of damage. Mom shook her head. We are trying to fix things. No, I said. You're trying to make me easier to manage. Her face fell. How can you say that? I took a breath and did not soften anything. I can say it because Nathan stole from me, lied about me, mocked me, and used me for years, and every single time you called it brother stuff, stress, a phase,
Or a misunderstanding. Mom opened her mouth, but I kept going.
You let him take money and watch Dad punish me for it. You let him humiliate me in front of relatives and told me not to be sensitive. You let him drag Sophie into his mess, and when I said no for once, you blamed her instead of him. Mom whispered, That is not fair. I looked at her steadily. Fair would have been one of you protecting me. Dad's voice hardened. Your mother and I loved you both. You favored him and managed me. That is not the same thing. Nathan pushed off the wall. You always wanted to be a victim. I almost laughed. You still think this is about attention? It is, he said. You couldn't handle that Mom and Dad trusted me more. Trusted you, I repeated. You mean excused you more? Dad snapped. Enough. No, I said. Not this time. I pointed at Nathan. You ruined every room you walked into and called it confidence. You borrowed, stole, insulted, blamed, and still walked away as the son who just needed support. Then I looked at my parents. And you taught him that. Every excuse you made for him was a lesson. Every time you told me to be quiet, to let it go, to keep the peace, you taught him my pain was affordable. Mom started crying harder. Daniel, please. You want to know what hurts most? Not even what he did. What hurts most is that someone always watched it happen and chose his comfort over my reality. Dad said, You are speaking to your parents. Yes, I said calmly, for the first time. He stepped toward me. This is disrespect. I shook my head. No. Disrespect was raising me to believe love meant being the one who absorbs the damage. Nathan scoffed. This is insane. I turned to him. You laughed when they took my savings. You smiled when they blamed Sophie. You still sit here expecting rescue. His face darkened. At least I didn't run away. I didn't run, I said. I survived. Mom stood up, crying now.
We did our best. I looked at her and felt something strange. Not rage, not hope, just clarity. Your best kept choosing the person who hurt me. Your best asked me to bleed quietly so this house could feel peaceful. Your best only reached for me when the son you invested in stopped giving you returns. Dad's expression changed, not into guilt, but anger. So that's what this is, he said. Resentment. You've always been jealous of your brother. I stared at him for a long second. This time, I just said, that is the lie you tell yourself, so you never have to face the truth. Nathan stepped forward. Say one more thing like that. I held his stare. Or what?
You'll do what you've always done? Hurt me and wait for them to explain it away? He looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. They moved like one broken machine. That was when the last piece of hope inside me died. I was finally done asking. I picked up my keys. Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. "Daniel," she cried, "please don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm putting it down." Dad's voice came low and dangerous. "If you walk out now, don't expect this family to wait forever." I opened the door. "You are not losing a son today. You lost me years ago. Today is just the first day I stopped pretending otherwise." Then I walked out, and the silence behind me did not feel like punishment. It felt like freedom. After I walked out of that house, I blocked their numbers for a week. Not forever, just long enough to hear my own thoughts without them climbing through a ringtone. By the second day, my Aunt Carol emailed me. "Call your mother. She is devastated." I stared at the screen, then closed it. By the third day, my cousin Ryan sent a message. "Whatever happened, man, they're still your parents." That line followed me everywhere, in texts, in voicemails,
In the tight voices of relatives who never once stepped in when Nathan mocked me at dinner, or when my father talked over me like I was a problem to manage instead of a son to know. A week later, I unblocked them, not because I was ready, but because I was tired of wondering what shape the pressure would take next. It took 6 minutes. Mom called first. "Daniel," she said, breathless with relief. "Finally." "I have 5 minutes," her voice cracked. "How can you do this to us?" I leaned against my kitchen counter. "Do what?" "Cut us off. Ignore us. After everything." I almost laughed. That phrase keeps doing a lot of heavy lifting. "Don't be cruel." "I learned from professionals." She went silent. Then she whispered, "Your father isn't taking this well." I spent years not taking any of it well. "Families don't throw each other away." "No," I said. "They usually start by throwing one person under everything and calling it love." She started crying again. "You've become so cold." I looked at the mug in my hand. No, I just stopped being reachable through guilt. I ended the call before she could answer. At work, Mara found me standing too long by the printer. "You look like you're arguing with ghosts," she said. "Close enough." She handed me a report. "Family?" I nodded. She did not say forgive them. She did not say maybe they meant well. She just asked, "Did talking to them cost you anything today?" I let out a slow breath. Peace. Maybe an hour of it. "Then that's a cost," she said. "People always talk about loyalty like it's free." I looked at her. "You ever notice how strangers can sound kinder than blood?" She gave a small shrug. "Strangers don't feel entitled to your silence." That stayed with me. Over the next month, the calls kept coming from different mouths. A family friend named Mr. Dorsey stopped me outside a grocery store. "Your mother told us things are tense. Things have been tense for years."
He smiled in that tired adult way people use when they want obedience to sound wise. "One day they won't be here. Don't live with regret." I held his gaze. "I already did. That's why I left." His smile slipped. Nathan's life kept unraveling in the background like a curtain finally dropping. I heard he was staying on a friend's couch, then not. I heard there were unpaid loans, threats from creditors, maybe worse. My parents kept trying to package it as bad luck. But without me there to absorb the panic, the truth had nowhere else to go. It stayed in the house with them. One night, I found myself scrolling through old messages from Sophie. I stopped on one I had never answered. "You keep asking broken people to stop cutting you, and then acting shocked when you bleed." Back then I thought the message was too harsh. Now it felt precise. I sat with that for a long time before calling her. She answered on the 4th ring. "Daniel?" "Hey." A pause. Then carefully. "Hey. I'm not calling to restart anything." I assumed. "I just wanted to say you were right." She was quiet for a second. "About what?" "About me. About them. About what I kept doing to myself." Her voice softened. "That couldn't have been easy to see." It wasn't. I looked around my apartment. Clean sink, folded blanket, no noise. But I see it now. And I think healing is going to be smaller than I expected. She almost laughed. Smaller how? Sleep, routine, not apologizing for existing, learning that peace can feel unfamiliar without being wrong. That sounds like a start. It is. When we hung up, I did not feel loss. I felt recognition. The karma I once imagined had been loud, public, satisfying in a cinematic way, but real karma was quieter than that. It was my parents sitting in the house they built, finally trapped inside the truth they kept editing. It was Nathan running out of people to blame. It was me waking up without dread, making coffee in silence, going to work, answering to no one who demanded I shrink to keep them comfortable. A home is not the place that breaks you and then asks why you flinch. A home is the place where your nervous system unclenches. Mine was not a childhood address. Mine was this small apartment, this steady job, this careful new life. And that was enough for me then. Mine was the moment I stopped going back. Time passed in smaller ways than I expected, not through grand healing or dramatic breakthroughs, through mornings, through rent paid on time, through coffee made before sunrise, through nights when I slept without dreaming about my father's voice or my mother's tears. I built a life that looked ordinary from the outside. That was part of what made it precious. My apartment changed first. The furniture stopped looking temporary. Books gathered on the shelf, plants stayed alive. I learned which floorboard creaked near the kitchen and which window caught the best afternoon light. Mara came by sometimes with takeout and dry humor. We never rushed whatever we were becoming. That helped too. One Friday evening, I came home with groceries and found a message from my mother waiting on my phone. "We still don't understand why you stopped calling this place home." I stood in the doorway with my keys in one hand and the phone in the other. A year earlier, that message would have lit a fire in me. I would have paced, rewritten arguments in my head, built speeches no one in that house would hear the way I meant them. Now all I felt was sadness. Not for the adults they were, for the boy I used to be. I set the groceries on the counter and sat down at the kitchen table. For a long time, I just stared at the message. We still don't understand. That part hurt almost more than anything else. Not because they truly did not know, because they had spent years refusing to know. I thought about the version of me who kept walking back into that house like loyalty could eventually earn safety. The boy who learned to measure every sentence before speaking. The teenager who stood accused while Nathan smirked. The young man who brought love into that family and watched them insult it the moment it stopped serving them. I could still see him clearly, standing at some invisible emotional door, knocking with bruised hands, hoping this time someone inside would finally say, "Come in, we believe you, we choose you." No one ever did. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Mara. "You home?" I typed back, "Yes." A second later she called. "You sound quiet," she said. My mother messaged. "That bad?" I looked at the screen again. "Not bad, just sad." "What did she say?" I read it aloud. Mara was silent for a moment. Then she asked, "Do you want to answer?" "I think I need to." Need to or want to? I considered that. Maybe both. "Then tell the truth," she said. "Not the truth that hurts most. The truth that frees you most." I let that settle. After we hung up, I opened a blank reply and stared at the cursor. For years, I had imagined this moment differently. I thought closure would sound sharp, final, brilliant in a way that made every wound line up and prove itself. Instead, the words came out plain. "Mom, I did not stop calling that place home because of one fight. I stopped because home is supposed to be the place where pain is believed. It is supposed to be the place where love protects instead of excuses. It is supposed to be the place where one person is not asked, over and over, to sacrifice peace so everyone else can stay comfortable. I grew up learning the opposite. Every time someone hurt me, especially Nathan. I was asked to stay quiet, let it go, be understanding, be mature, be the bigger person. The person who caused the damage was comforted. The person who reacted to the damage was corrected.
That changes a person. It changed me. I learned that being loved conditionally can make even kindness feel temporary, suspicious, and a little dangerous. I did not leave because I hated you. I left because I finally understood that if I stayed, I would keep shrinking to fit a version of family that only worked when I had no boundaries. You defended every person who hurt me, and then acted surprised when I learned to live without that hurt. That house stopped feeling like home long before I stopped coming back. Home is not where people explain your pain to you. It is where they care that it happened. I hope one day you understand that. Daniel. I read it 3 times. No cruelty, no performance, no begging, just the truth. I sent it before I could edit myself into silence. Then I put the phone face down and stood by the window while evening settled over the parking lot outside. For a second, I felt 12 again. Small, watchful, waiting for the next sound that might mean trouble. But no one shouted. No one called my name in that warning tone. No one laughed at my expense and waited for me to smile. The apartment stayed quiet. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed once. I did not look. Maybe it was my mother. Maybe my father had taken the phone and turned my words into disrespect. Maybe Nathan had found a way to make himself the victim one more time. It no longer mattered the way it used to. I walked to the front door, checked the lock, and turned it once more, just to feel the click under my hand. Then I crossed the room, sat on the couch, and listened. Silence had terrified me once. Silence used to mean distance, punishment, being left alone with feelings too large to hold. Now it meant something else. No footsteps coming down a hallway toward me. No voices deciding who I was before I could speak. No pressure to forgive before I had healed. No demand to call brokenness love. I leaned back and let the quiet settle around me. It did not feel empty. It felt earned. It felt clean. It felt like the first honest home I had ever known.